Hello, I'm the Doctor. Welcome to DoctorGeek. Today, I'm doing a speed rundown of the 4th Doctor for the 12 Doctors of Christmas special I'm doing this month. Be sure to check back tomorrow for my rundown of the 5th Doctor and every day after that until Christmas. So like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. Just a reminder, there will be spoilers in this video. While this installment will be longer than the others, the summaries will be much briefer, because 7 years is really hard to summarize in just one day. But I will reveal some key plot points. I promise I will do a more comprehensive video on the 4th Doctor later, maybe in 2 parts, to fit everything in. With that said, let's pick up where we last left off. After the Doctor's regeneration, he falls unconscious and is handed over to the unit doctor, Lieutenant Harry Sullivan. When he wakes, he immediately tries to leave in his TARDIS, but Sarah Jane and the Brigadier convince him to stay and help with a case. Plans and parts for a top-secret disintegrator gun have been stolen. A robot that can think for itself is revealed to be the culprit, but it's being controlled by its creator. After it uses the gun to steal the nuclear codes, a launch of nuclear missiles seems imminent, but the Doctor stops the launch. And when the robot grows to giant proportions, the Doctor develops a metal biodegradable virus to shrink it down to nothing. Afterwards, the Doctor offers Sarah Jane and even Harry Sullivan a ride in the TARDIS. The TARDIS lands on a space station orbiting Earth in the distant future, called the Nerva Beacon. It's seemingly deserted, but the Doctor, Sarah, and Harry soon discover that they are not alone. Thousands of humans are in cryogenic sleep, and while they've slept, the Ark has been invaded. A parasitic insect race, the Weeren, have taken control and threaten the future of mankind. Realizing they're vulnerable to electricity, they use a transport ship's generator to protect themselves, and when the Weeren swarm the transport ship, they jettison it. In one last spark of humanity, a converted Weeren self-destructs the ship, killing the swarm. The TARDIS team transmat down to Earth from the Nerva station and assume it to be uninhabited. However, they soon make contact with a group of shipwrecked astronauts from a distant Earth colony. They have been lured to the Earth by a fake distress signal, and since arriving, they have been experimented on, and some killed, by an alien. The alien turns out to be Field Major Steyer, a Centauran, who is experimenting on the humans as part of an intelligence report before an invasion. The Doctor challenges Steyer to hand-to-hand combat, while Harry sabotages his ship, and when the weakened Centauran returns to the ship to recharge, he's killed. The Doctor informs the Centauran fleet that they now possess their battle plans, and he prevents an invasion. The Doctor and his companions are returning from Earth to Nerva Station via transmat, when they are intercepted by the Time Lords. The Doctor is instructed to interfere with the creation of the Daleks, so that they never come to conquer the universe. The three find themselves on the Dalek planet of Skaro, where a generations-long war between the Thals and the Khalids have left the planet inhospitable. They are there to see the Khalid head scientist, Davros, display his newest creation, the Mark II travel machine, or Dalek as it will later be known. The Doctor rigs the Dalek incubation room with explosives, and has the ability to kill all of them and stop the Daleks before it all begins. But he asks himself if he has that right, and decides to try and find a better way. Meanwhile, Davros uses his Dalek to kill everyone who disagrees with him, but when he notices the Daleks have started to think for themselves, he tries to stop them, only to have them turn against even him. The Doctor returns to the incubation room and connects the wires, setting the Dalek evolution back about 1,000 years, but sooner or later, they will still become the menace that the Doctor knows all too well. The three travelers use the time ring the Time Lords gave them to return to Nerva, but they arrive in the past and must wait for the TARDIS to come back through time for them. They find the crew here devastated by a mysterious plague, and soon discover that the Cybermen are behind it. They try to take over the station as part of a plan to destroy an asteroid made of gold named Voga, that the station is orbiting. The Doctor blows up the cyber fleet with a missile, and then receives an urgent message from the Brigadier, prompting the three to hurry back to Earth. The Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Harry arrive in the TARDIS in Scotland, where the Brigadier and unit are investigating the destruction of oil rigs, which they assume were destroyed by a huge sea creature, as there are giant teeth marks in the wreckage. The culprit turns out to be an alien race called the Zygons, who possess the ability to shapeshift and are trying to take over the world and terraform it to their needs. The Loch Ness Monster was brought to Earth by them, and they use it to collect oil for their machines. The Doctor sneaks aboard their ship and sets it to self-destruct, killing the Zygons. Picking up a distress call from the edges of the known universe, the Doctor and Sarah Jane find themselves on Zeta Minor, where they discover that a geological expedition has fallen prey to an unseen killer, and only the leader, Professor Sorensen, remains alive. The culprit is eventually revealed to be a creature from a universe of antimatter, retaliating for the removal by Sorensen of some antimatter samples from around the pit that acts as an interface between the two universes. Sorensen becomes infected by antimatter and transforms into an Anti-Man, a monster capable of draining the life from others. The Doctor takes him back to the planet and throws both him and his samples into the pit. Sorensen reappears unharmed, and the Doctor returns him to his ship. The Doctor lands the TARDIS in the Scarman family home in England, which is filled with Egyptian artifacts. Beneath a pyramid, Sutekh, the Destroyer, the last of a powerful alien race called the Osirans, and the source of many of Earth's deities, waits to be freed, to at long last bring his gift of death to all who live. The Doctor outwits him though, trapping him in a prison he will never escape. The TARDIS materializes, apparently in the English countryside, where the Doctor detects an odd energy reading. He and Sarah Jane meet a group of men in white suits and opaque helmets, who turn out to be androids, and shoot at them with their index fingers. They realize that they are not actually on Earth, but a duplicated village that is being used as an android training ground. They escape the fake world and make their way towards Earth to prepare for the true invasion, and the Doctor uses a radar dish to disable the androids. The TARDIS materializes in the middle of a lightning storm on the planet Karn, and the Doctor rushes out, ranting at the Time Lords for diverting him to this place. Meanwhile, the Sisterhood of Karn identify his TARDIS as a Time Lord vessel, and fear that he is after their elixir of life. The Doctor and Sarah Jane make their way to a castle they see, and while there, the Doctor recognizes a clay bust of Morbius, one of the Time Lord's greatest criminals. Before he can say anything though, a drug takes effect, and the Doctor passes out. It turns out that Morbius's brain has survived, and someone is trying to build a patchwork body to place him in, with the Doctor's head being the last piece. But when Morbius orders the procedure to be done early with an artificial brain casing, something goes wrong and he begins attacking indiscriminately. After fixing the initial issue, however, the Doctor challenges him to a mind-bending contest, and when he triumphs, the stunned Morbius is knocked off a cliff. However, the Doctor is in critical condition, and the Sisterhood must use the elixir of life to save him. When scientists in the Antarctic uncover two mysterious seed pods, the Doctor is called in to investigate. He soon realizes that they are extraterrestrial and extremely dangerous, with contact with one turning you into a crinoid, a galactic weed that settles on planets and eats the animal life. When one of the scientists becomes infected, he transforms into the monster, eventually growing to a massive size. The Doctor orders an airstrike that wipes it out. Later, the Fourth Doctor shows Sarah Jane some of the TARDIS interior, and they come across the secondary console room. Activating the view screen, the Doctor sees a swirl of living energy, the Mandragora Helix, which starts to draw them in. The intelligence within the Helix psychically attacks them as the Doctor tries to pilot the TARDIS through it. Unknown to him, a fragment of the Helix enters the TARDIS. They land in 15th century San Martino in Italy, which the Helix picked because it's the start of the Renaissance, and the Helix can gain control of the Earth through a new religion. However, through cunning, the Doctor manages to trick the followers of the Helix and drain its power. The Doctor and Sarah Jane arrive in the TARDIS in a quarry and are caught up in a quarrying explosion. Sarah Jane is rendered unconscious but makes contact with a fossilized hand and is placed under its control. Sarah Jane heads for the nearest nuclear generator, the Nunton complex, where she causes a crisis by breaking into the reactor with the hand. It seems to thrive on radiation and begins to regenerate, growing back its missing finger and moving around unaided, eventually regenerating an entire body. The hand belongs to the criminal Eldred from the planet Castria, and he convinces the Doctor to take him back to where he comes from. But what they find is a barren, dead world. When Eldred resolves to take over the Earth instead, the Doctor throws him into an abyss. The Doctor then receives a summons from the Time Lords, and knowing he cannot take Sarah Jane with him, he bids her goodbye and returns her to Earth. After receiving the message from the Time Lords, the Doctor materializes on Gallifrey, but is immediately swarmed by the guards and realizes that the Time Lords did not actually send for him. Somewhere in the Citadel, the Master is lurking, setting a trap for the Doctor, and he is severely disfigured since we last saw him, having run out of regenerations. When the President of Gallifrey is murdered, the Doctor is framed, and so he takes advantage of a technicality and runs for President to ensure his liberty, for the moment. The Doctor finds out that the Master is trying to steal powerful Gallifreyan items in order to obtain a new set of regenerations, even if it means the destruction of Gallifrey itself. The Doctor and the Master fight, and the Master falls into a chasm, allowing the Doctor to undo his damage and save Gallifrey. However, after the Doctor leaves, the Master is seen sneaking into his TARDIS. The Doctor, now traveling alone, arrives on a planet where two tribes, the savage Seva team and the technically brilliant Tesh, are at war. And he meets Leela, an exile from the Seva team, who denounces him as the evil one, a fable of her people. The Doctor realizes that the Seva team are actually the descendants of a lost survey team, which years ago left a colony ship. The Doctor finds an independently thinking computer named Zoannon somewhere on the planet that he sometime in the past repaired, but forgot to wipe his personality print from its data core, leading the computer to have a split personality and perform horrible eugenics experiments. The Doctor repairs the computer, restoring its sanity, and Leela forces her way onto the TARDIS, becoming the newest companion. The Doctor and Leela land aboard Storm Mine 4, a sand miner whose crew are being murdered one by one. They learn that someone on board has been reprogramming the ship's work robots to kill people, and the Doctor cleverly turns the robots against him, before shutting them down and reprogramming them all. The Doctor and Leela arrive in London so that Leela can learn about the customs of her ancestors, but are confronted by a string of young girls' murders. The culprit turns out to be Magnus Greel, a despot from the 51st century who escaped the authorities in a time cabinet. However, the cabinet altered his DNA, forcing him to extract the life energy of young women to sustain himself. The Doctor forces him into his own extraction machine, causing an overload that kills him. The TARDIS lands on the island of Fang Rock off the southern coast of England in the early years of the 20th century. Noticing that the lighthouse isn't functioning properly, the Doctor decides to investigate. They find one of the three keepers dead, and something is feeding on their power supply, making the light inconsistent. This causes a yacht to crash on the island, and 4 more people join them. They find the keeper's body has been used as an anatomy lesson, and soon 2 more people are dead. Once everyone has been killed, the creature reveals itself as a Rutan, the enemies of the Sontarans. The Doctor focuses the lighthouse beam to create a laser and destroys the Rutan ship. Some human space travelers are cruising through space when they are possessed by a strange virus. Reaching their destination, Titan Base, they proceed to take over the base as a breeding ground. The station manager, Lo, is able to send out a distress call. The Doctor hears this and goes to investigate, but is overcome by an infection and is chosen to be the host of the nucleus of the swarm. The Doctor tells Leela to get him to a medical center, and they visit the Doctor's doctor, Professor Marinus, who introduces them to his robotic dog, K9. The Doctor and Leela create mini clones of themselves to enter the Doctor's body and destroy the nucleus, and once that's done, they travel to Titan Base and kill the swarm by igniting the atmosphere. They thank Professor Marinus for K9's help, and he offers them the dog permanently, which they happily accept. 4 scientists are doing tests on a human skull they found in Kenya, apparently 12 million years old, when one of them starts using a sonic time scan, trying to get an image of the owner of the skull. It catches the attention of the Doctor and Leela as they are pulled down to Earth by it. The skull creates a creature, and the Doctor eventually determines that it is Fendaline, a creature from his planet's mythology. The Doctor prevents Fendaline from converting enough people into its cult, and grabs the skull, throwing it into a supernova to end the Fendal race forever. Far in the distant future, Earth has become uninhabitable, forcing mankind to colonize first Mars and then Pluto. No longer the coldest planet in the solar system, Pluto is now warmed by artificial suns. The Doctor, Leela, and K9 arrive to discover the exploitation of the Megropolis people by the ruling elite, led by the Collector. With a little prodding, they lead a revolt of the people against the tax collectors. In the history of the Time Lords, their involvement with the minions of Minos is regarded as a disaster. The minions look towards the Time Lords as gods, but having learnt much from their science, later expelled the Time Lords, who thereafter adopted a policy of non-intervention. The TARDIS materializes on one of the minion ships called the R1C. The crew of 4 are on a quest that has taken many millennia. Their aim is to find a missing ship, the P7E, which disappeared while carrying the genetic race banks of their entire species. When they find the ship at the center of a small planet, the Doctor helps them locate their race banks and save their species. The Doctor takes his companions to the Citadel at Gallifrey. Once there, he takes claim to the vacant presidency as his right by Time Lord law, has his presidential offices lined with lead, and has Leela banished from the Citadel as she is an alien. Later, in front of the gathered Time Lords, the Doctor greets 3 figures that materialize, the Vardans, and addresses them as the Time Lords' new masters. The Doctor has a plan to lock the Vardans away in a time lock on their home planet, but needed to fake this facade to determine the location of their homeworld, and he banished Leela for her own safety. The Doctor tricks the Vardan into using the time lock, but soon the Sontarans transport into the Citadel, seizing control. The Doctor constructs a weapon that erases people from time and uses it on one of the Centauran leaders, changing the past and making the Centaurans disappear. As they prepare to leave, Leela decides to stay behind on Gallifrey, having fallen in love, and K9 elects to stay with her. The Doctor says his goodbyes, and inside his TARDIS pulls out a box labeled K9 Mark II. The Doctor is summoned by a mysterious and powerful White Guardian, and sent on a quest to find the 6 segments of the Key to Time, which, once assembled, will restore balance to the universe. Joining the Doctor and K9 is the smart and sassy Romana, a Time Lord fresh from the Academy. Landing on the wintry planet of Ribos to locate the first segment, they find it inside a rare mineral and continue on their way. The Doctor and Romana learn that the second segment of the Key to Time is on the planet Califrax, yet they arrive on the planet called Zanak, which has been hollowed out and fitted with hyperspace engines, allowing its insane, half-robot captain to materialize it around smaller planets and plunder their resources. After repairing Zanak's engines, the captain plans to take Zanak to Earth. The Doctor finds the true menace controlling the captain is the ancient tyrant queen Zanaxia, and the travelers defeat her before finding the second segment. Searching for the third segment to the Key to Time brings the Doctor and Romana to present-day Earth. They meet Professor Amelia Rumford and her friend Vivian Fay, studying the 9 travelers, standing stones in Boscombe Moor. The Doctor recognizes the stones as Ogre, a life form from the planet Ogros. The Doctor learns that Vivian is a criminal known as the Cessair, who has stolen the great seal of the planet Diplos. The Doctor brings her to justice and takes the seal from her, which contains the third segment. The Doctor and Romana arrive on the planet Tara in search of the fourth segment, and for once, their quest is simple. Romana identifies and transforms the fourth segment alone, disguised as part of a statue. But she is soon attacked by a native Terran bear, and when she is saved by Count Grendel, she is thought to be an android and nearly killed, before being imprisoned. Romana escapes, and the Doctor and Grendel duel with electro swords before the Count is defeated, and the two leave with the fourth segment. The Doctor and Romana arrive on the third moon of Delta Magna, searching for the penultimate segment of the Key to Time, but find themselves caught in the middle of a dispute between the crew of the methane refinery and the natives known as Swampies. The Swampies claim the crew have disturbed the waters and will incur the wrath of Kroll, a giant squid which surfaces to feed every few centuries. It turns out that Kroll has swallowed the segment, and the Doctor uses the Tracer to eliminate him, saving the moon and securing the fifth segment of the Key to Time. The final segment of the Key to Time is at the heart of a devastating war between neighboring planets Atrios and Zeos. The Doctor finds that Zeos is actually deserted, except for a giant computer called Mentalus, which is controlling the war. He also discovers that the true opponent is a third planet called the Planet of Evil, ruled by the Shadow, an agent of the Black Guardian. The Shadow has Princess Astra of Atrius captive, threatening to torture her if she doesn't give him the location of the final segment of the Key to Time. It turns out that the princess is the final segment, and she transforms in front of everyone. The Doctor assembles the key, and the White Guardian congratulates him, but he realizes it's actually the Black Guardian in disguise, and orders the segments to redisperse. In an attempt to evade the Black Guardian, the Doctor outfits the TARDIS with a randomizer so that they cannot be followed, meaning the Doctor will once again have no idea where his TARDIS will go. The Doctor and a newly regenerated Romana arrive on Skara to find that the Daleks are using explosive charges and a group of humanoid slave workers to mine the planet in search of their creator, Davros, who has been in suspended animation since the events of Genesis. A stalemate has arisen in an interplanetary war that the Daleks are waging against the robotic and equally logical Movellans, and their hope is that Davros will be able to give them an edge in their fight. A force of Movellans also arrive on Skaro, and ask the Doctor to give them a spark of intuition in their war, similar to Davros for the Daleks. The Doctor ends up destroying the Daleks and disabling the Movellans, before taking Davros prisoner and sending him to await trial. While in Paris, the Doctor and Romana sense the effects of time distortion and uncover a series of time experiments being carried out by a Count Scarleone, who is actually an alien named Scaroth, of the Jaggeroth race. He arrived on Earth 400 million years ago, but due to an explosion in his craft, he was scattered throughout time, and now wants to somehow stop that explosion from ever happening. Scaroth is killed when his bodyguard sees his true form, and they both perish in a fire. The TARDIS identifies a distress signal and brings the craft to a lush jungle world of Chloris, where metal of all forms is a rare and prized commodity. The Doctor and Romana venture out to discover the remains of an enormous egg in the jungle, and when they meet the inhabitants, they find a matriarchy ruled through fear by an icy and callous Lady Adrasta. They are told that the egg belongs to a creature that lives in a deep pit on Chloris, and the Doctor jumps in to discover it, and finds out that the creature is harmless, an herbivore that creates metal inside itself. Using a translator, the Doctor learns that the creature is named Arado, and is actually an ambassador from another planet who came to discuss a trade deal for metal, and was imprisoned for endangering Adrasta's power over the planet. The Doctor frees Arado, and he in turn helps them avoid a neutron star sent by his people in retaliation for his imprisonment. Next, the TARDIS arrives on the space liner Empress, which has become locked with a private ship called the Hecate, after colliding with it after emerging from hyperspace. They meet the scientist Trist, who has with him a continuous event transmuter machine containing crystals on which are stored recordings of planets that he and his team have visited. Someone on board the liner is smuggling the addictive drug Vraxowin. Also, the interface between the two ships allows some monstrous mandrills from the mud swamps of Eden to escape from the CET machine, which does not merely take recordings, but actually displaces whole planetary areas into crystals. The Doctor separates the two ships and returns the mandrills to Eden. The Doctor, Romana, and K9 are in the TARDIS console room where he is making modifications to the ship. Various controls are disconnected, and the TARDIS materializes close to a manufactured black hole, with them being in danger of being drawn in. He extends the TARDIS door force field to a nearby spaceship, a Skonan battlecruiser, and he and Romana board the warship. They eventually find themselves on Skonos, where the planet has been enslaved by a race of beasts called the Naimon, whom the Doctor defeats. Next, on planet Shada, the Time Lords have constructed a high-security prison for some of the universe's most dangerous criminals. Skagra, a flawed genius from the planet Dronoid, wants to create a universal mind with all the pooled knowledge of the universe's greatest criminals at his disposal, and with which he could take control of the universe. Skagra wants to go to Shada to extract the knowledge of the criminals who have been imprisoned there. The Doctor battles him for control of the universal mind. The Doctor and Romana arrive on Argolis in search of a peaceful holiday at the famed Leisure Hive. Instead, they become embroiled in both a takeover scheme by the Argolans' historic enemy, the Fomacy, and the effects of a recreation generator that can rejuvenate the old to stay young. To save the day, the Doctor must use the randomizer from his TARDIS, which once again puts him at risk of encountering the Black Guardian. On Tygella, two opposing factions, the Savants and the Daons, are irrevocably divided over one fundamental issue, the dodecahedron, a mysterious artifact which provides the entire planet's energy. With the Savants and the Daons locked in a crippling stalemate, and their civilization on the brink of collapse. The Tygellan leader Zaster seeks the Doctor's help, but once he arrives, he is put into a time bubble, causing him and Romana to repeat a small pocket of time over and over again. The culprit of this is Meglos, a cactus creature that has remained hidden below the surface of the planet. Meglos wants to steal the dodecahedron, and after impersonating the Doctor, he succeeds. But when he tries to use its power to destroy Tygella, he instead destroys himself. Just then, Romana is called back to Gallifrey. However, on the way there, the TARDIS falls through a strange phenomenon and ends up in an alternate universe called E-Space. Nearby is a small but sustainable civilization of Alzarians, who live between a river and a grounded spaceship called the Starliner. One of the brightest of their younger generation of colonists is Adric, who bears a badge of mathematical excellence in recognition of his computational skills. Strange eggs have started to appear in the river fruit, and this is interpreted as an omen of mistfall, a periodic change to the planet during which the natural balance of society is threatened. Humanoid aggressive marshmen begin appearing from underwater, and scuttling marsh spiders hatch from the eggs of the river fruit. It is realized that the present-day Alzarians are actually a subspecies of the marshmen, who wiped out the Starliner's original crew and gradually evolved a human form to take their place. As they leave the planet, the Doctor and Romana are unaware that Adric has stowed away on the TARDIS. Still trapped in E-Space, the Doctor's TARDIS materializes on a medieval planet. The townsfolk live in fear of the three who rule, who govern from their mighty castle. Investigating, the Fourth Doctor discovers that the three who rule are ancient astronauts who became vampires long ago, and their castle is actually their spaceship. When Romana and Adric are kidnapped, the Doctor must ally himself with a band of renegade peasants to stop the resurrection of one of Gallifrey's greatest enemies, the King Vampire. Using one of the spaceship's scout ships, the Doctor fires it at the King Vampire, killing him. The TARDIS and its crew of the Doctor, Romana, Adric, and K9, while traveling through E-space, become trapped in a white null space between the universes. Elsewhere in the void, another spacecraft run by Commander Rorvik has also become trapped. The ship is a slave vessel, using members of the Theral race as their navigators. The Doctor leaves on his own to explore the null space, finding a large stone gateway, but cannot pass through. When the TARDIS team saves the Theral race from slavers, they tell the Doctor how to return to normal space, but Romana decides to stay with them, having become empathetic to their plight. The Doctor leaves K9 with her, and travels through the gate with Adric. In the TARDIS, the Doctor and Adric arrive back in regular space, in an area known as the Trakan Union, an empire of peace and harmony. They find a holographic image of the elderly keeper of Trakan appear in the TARDIS, calling on the Doctor's help. He explains that his title is about to pass on soon to Consul Tremos, giving him access to the powerful source that is at the center of Trakan's technological advancement, but senses evil within him, his wife Cassia, and their daughter Nyssa. The Keeper suspects a connection to Melkur, an evil creature that arrived years ago on Trakan, but became calcified in a grove in the capital. The Doctor and Adric land at Trakan's capital and begin to help get to the bottom of mysterious deaths, eventually discovering the Master, still on his last regeneration, attempting to use the powerful source to reinstate his regeneration cycle. The Doctor disconnects the source from the Master and foils his plan. However, after the Doctor leaves, the Master steals the body of Tremos, leaving Nyssa wondering where her father has gone. Finally, the Doctor materializes the TARDIS around a real police box in order to take new measurements to repair the broken chameleon circuit. With Adric's help, he takes the measurements and prepares to travel to the planet Legopolis where he can get it fixed. However, the Master learns of the Doctor's plan and materializes his TARDIS around the box first, causing a recursion loop. When the Doctor finally escapes the loop, he sees a figure in white, the Watcher, telling him to go to Legopolis immediately, which he does. Not noticing that he has picked up a new traveler, air stewardess Tegan Jovanka, seeking help for her broken down car. At Legopolis, all seems well at first, but the Master has arrived with a hypnotized Nyssa and wreaks havoc by killing some mathematicians, causing their efforts to hold back the entropy in the universe to fail, and the planet begins to crumble. On Earth, the Doctor uses a radio telescope to reassert the computations and fix the entropy problem, but the Master thwarts him one last time, and though he is able to correct the catastrophe, the Doctor falls from the telescope to his death. As his companions Adric, Tegan, and Nyssa gather around him, the Watcher appears and merges with the Doctor, causing him to regenerate. So, that was my speedrun summary of the 4th Doctor's tenure in the TARDIS. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new videos every week, including a full summary of the 5th Doctor tomorrow, and a new video every day until Christmas Day. As always, thank you for being my companion on this journey today. I'm the Doctor. Bye for now.